Hello everyone, it's Wednesday afternoon. I think I may have been able to solve the problem of these weekly videos. As the message that accompanies this describes, I'm going to put these on a YouTube site I'm creating just for the classes I teach. So instead of going through the trouble of trying to post them on the site, which seems to work for some people and not others, I think everyone should be able to access these through YouTube. What I'll do is send you the link in the email that you'll get through Blackboard. Just copy and paste that into your browser, and that should take you directly to the video that you'll need to see for that given week. So we're looking at interviews this week, and a couple things that I wanted to include that go just beyond the text and whatever video I may have posted for this week. There's some really distinct challenges regarding interviews. We like to think that an interview is just another conversation, but it's really, there's nothing natural about it at all. And it takes a lot of practice to be able to do this well. One of the things that I really encourage people to do when they begin a study is to take some time doing some practice interviews. If you're a faculty member, you can do that maybe with a colleague or with some students. In any event, I think you'll find it useful to go through a period of practice where you run through with a couple people in order to work out any bugs you might find. I think it'll also help sharpen your own skills in terms of relating to participants, anticipating any problems that might arise, becoming more fluid and natural in terms of your prompts in order to probe for deeper meaning. Another thing you definitely want to do, and I learned this one the hard way, is always test your equipment. Always make sure you're familiar with your equipment. Again, I learned this one the hard way. Back in, it would have been '99, shortly after I started here at Tech, I began working on a project. And I bought a new tape recorder to take with me. Went to an interview with this participant. Great interview. He really was very generous with his time. About an hour. Went really well, probed very deeply for meaning. I got back into the car about to leave, and I wanted to just listen to a few key points to make some field notes. And I realized that I was actually completely unfamiliar with this new tape recorder. And some of you may not even be familiar with tape recorders. You probably use digital equipment. But old tape recorders, you would have to hit play and record in order to record something. I just hit play on a blank tape. So that whole hour shot to hell. I couldn't go back and ask the person to do this again. This was a very busy individual. So keep in mind, be familiar with equipment. It's so easy to make mistakes like that when you're unfamiliar. Another reason to practice, both to be familiar with your equipment and prompts, these are very perishable skills. Research skills are like muscles. If we don't use them, if we don't practice with them, it's very easy for us to let those skills atrophy. I recently started out work on a new project here with a colleague and a couple of students. We're going to be doing some interviews. And I purposely scheduled some time for the students and I to do practice interviews with each other so that we're familiar with this. And it's not just for their benefit. They haven't been involved in a study that did interviews before, I don't think any of them. But it's also for my benefit as well. For the most part, I've done archival research. I've done a few studies that involve interviews, but I haven't done any interviews probably a good 10, maybe 11 years. So this is going to be a refresher for me as well. And it's interesting thinking about this because it really intersects with things like planning a study, as well as ethical issues as well. The study I'm doing, to give you a little background, we're going to be interviewing adults who were adopted at birth and who've recently obtained original copies of their birth certificates. Now, until the last maybe 5-10 years, in all the states in the Union, adoptees, even as adults, were not allowed to have original copies of their birth certificates with the names of their birth parents, maybe even their own name at birth. They may have been named differently at birth than from what their adopted parents gave them. And those laws have been changing. More and more states are beginning to allow adult adoptees, 21 and older, to access copies of their original birth certificates. In some cases, they're allowed to access them without any restrictions. In some states, the birth parents are allowed to stipulate whether their names are on them or not, provided that they're still living. So it varies, but what we're going to do is interview the adopted adults who've received copies of their original birth certificates to talk about what that experience has been like for them in terms of what the experience has meant, whether it's a starting point for developing more contact, maybe trying to find their birth parents or even siblings, whether it's a stopping point, the information that was in it. What does it mean in terms of how they integrate their new identity? So whenever we experience things in life, we have to integrate that into us, into our identity. Our identity is not a static thing. It's very fluid, very evolving, even for adults. So we're interested in finding out what that means, and in particular, what I'm really interested in, my little niche in this study, find out what it means if they have been, if they were given a different name at birth. As in some cases, the birth mothers would name the child, and then the records would be sealed, the child would be adopted, and then the child would be given a new name by their adoptive parents. And I'm really interested in finding out what it means to, oh, my phone is ringing. Pardon me.